I moved back home 15 years ago after a 20-year stay in the United States, and Africa called me back. Africa has had a long tradition of writing, but this is not such a well-known fact. And I wrote the book African Alphabets to address that. The different types of writing in Africa. First was proto-writing, as illustrated by Nsibidi, which is a writing system of a secret society of the Ejagham people in southern Nigeria. So it's a special interest writing system. The Akan people of Ghana and Sierra Leone developed Adinkra symbols some 400 years ago. And these are proverbs, historical sayings, objects, animals, plants. And my favorite Adinkra system is the first one at the top on the left. It's called Sankofa. It means return and get it. Learn from the past. Ethiopia has had the longest tradition of writing with the Ethiopic script that was developed in 4th century AD and is used to write Amharic, which is spoken by over 24 million people. Africans of antiquity created civilization, and their monuments, which still stand today, are a true testimony of their greatness. Most probably, one of humanity's greatest achievements is the invention of the alphabet, and that has been attributed to Mesopotamia with their invention of cuneiform in 1600 BC. Followed by hieroglyphics in Egypt. And that story has been cast in stone as historical fact. That is until 1998, when one professor, Yale professor John Coleman Donnell, discovered these inscriptions in the Thebes desert on the limestone cliffs in western Egypt. And these have been dated at between 1800 and 1900 BC. Centuries before Mesopotamia, called Wadi El Hol because of the place that they were discovered. These inscriptions, research is still going on. A few of them have been deciphered, but there is consensus amongst scholars that this is really humanity's first alphabet. Over here, you see a paleographic chart that shows what has been deciphered so far, starting with the letter A, Aleph at the top, and Bet in the middle, and so forth.
And then I came across a newspaper article, and I actually still have it. I've got it right here. I kept it. This was what got me started on the ancient Hebrew. You might have seen this on my website, or at least a color picture of this. This is the Temple of Yahweh Ostraca, and it was found about, well, it was in 1997, and it mentions the Temple of Yahweh. And I saw that script, and I said, that's not the Hebrew I'm learning. What is this? And so I got really interested in the ancient Hebrew script, which kind of led me on a journey to where we're at here today. As English, Greco-Roman, Western thinkers were approaching the biblical text from the wrong perspective. We're blind men trying to feel our way through the text, trying to understand it. That's why we have so many different ways of understanding the scriptures. Bottom line is you got to get back to the Hebrew. You got to understand the culture, the mindset of the people who wrote the text. And also to give you an example of how sometimes translations can get mixed up. Anybody here familiar with the story of Cinderella? And her, what kind of slippers did she have? Glass. No. Originally it was not glass. It's a Russian story. It was originally written in Russia, but the Russian word was translated later into French. The Frenchman found the Cinderella story, liked it, translated it into French, and he translated that word as verre. Now the word verre can either be glass, but spelled V-A-I-R-E, or it can be fur, V-A-R-E. They sound the same, but they're two different words. Originally in the Russian story, it was Cinderella's fur slippers. The Frenchman made a mistake, and he translated as glass slippers. Now we got this gal trying to run around in glass. Can you imagine wearing glass shoes? You know? So there was an error made in that translation, which caused to us now having the Walt Disney picture with Cinderella with the glass slipper. These type of things happen all the time in the biblical text. Okay, the most crucial ingredient to communication is using common understanding of words. If we are talking here, you're familiar with my speech, I'm familiar with your speech, we can communicate. The biblical text was originally written in Hebrew by Hebrews in a Hebraic culture. If we try and read the Bible from an American or a modern Western culture, you're going to get things mixed up. Something's not going to click right. We may think we're understanding it, but in fact we're not. Of. The Hebrew word of. How many people recognize that word there? I think probably a lot of us have. Okay, what does of mean? Father. Abba is actually an Aramaic word borrowed by Hebrew later. By the 1st century, Yeshua's time, it did become a Hebrew word. But originally, Abba was the Aramaic form of this word. But look at the letters there up at the top. The Aleph and the Beit. And what script is being written there? Modern Hebrew. Right, it's modern Hebrew, but it's not really even Hebrew. The origin of that script is Aramaic. When Israel was taken into Babylonian captivity, they adopted the Aramaic square script because it was easier to write. That, my friends, is Aramaic. It's not Hebrew. The definition of that word is father, right? That's Greek. Father is an abstract concept. It's a Greek concept. It's not biblical Hebrew. So let me ask you this. If we have Aramaic script, Greek definition, where's the Hebrew? There's no Hebrew up there. Huh? It's not in the letters. Those letters are Aramaic. The letters are Aramaic. The definition is Greek. That's pictographic Hebrew. That's the way Hebrew was originally written. Pictographs, like hieroglyphs. Can you see a picture there? Hebrew is very picture-oriented, action-oriented, picture-oriented. Everything in Hebrew should be understood as an action that you could draw a picture of. The first letter is the Aleph, it's a picture of an ox head. The second letter is the Bet, a picture of a tent. That's Hebrew. Now, what does that word mean? Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about this word itself, but just very easily, the ox represents strength. The Bet is a picture of a tent, and it represents the tent, or the family. So this word literally means the tent pole. It's the strength of the tent. What holds up, when you go camping, you put up the tent poles, that's what holds up the tent. It's the strength of the house, the strength of the tent. That's what that word means in ancient Hebrew. Now, by extension, it also is the strength of the family. That's the father. This is how we need to be understanding Hebrew. When you're reading the Bible and you just see the word father and skip on, you miss something because there may be something in that text that's trying to tell you something about this word.
Is Abashas in Israel.
Vous passez au Cameroun.
You go to Cameroon.
Vous allez trouver Yaoundé.
You find the Yaoundé.
Qui est Yehudi.
Who is a Yehudi in Hebrew.
Et vous trouvez Bamileke.
You find the Bamileke.
Qui est Amoleket.
Who's from Hebrew word Amoleke.
Qui est Bassa.
You find the Bassa.
Qui est aussi Bassa en Israël.
Who's been Bassa also in Israel.
Douala Mangabel. Donc,
you find the Douala Mangabel.
Qui est Judah Maccabée.
Who is the Judah Maccabée.
Nous allons au Gabon.
You go to Gabon.
Vous allez trouver le mot Gabon vient du Gabaon.
The word Gabon came from Hebrew word Gabaon.
Donc les Gabonais aussi, les anciens Gabonais l'appelaient Gabon aussi.
People from Gabon used to call that Gabon also, their country also.
Bateke.
You have a Bateke.
Qui est en Israël, et Tekoa, qui est une tribu bien connue en Israël.
Also from the Hebrew word Ben Tekoa was a tribe was well known in Israel.
Et nous allons au Congo.
We go to Congo.
Vous voyez le nom Kinshasa.
You have the word Kinshasa.
Kinshasa, c'est un nom qui vient de Kushaja, qui est l'ancien nom de Kinshasa.
Kinshasa came from the word Ishasha.
Kushaja.
Kushaja.
Au chapitre 1er du verset de Chroniques au verset 15 et 17.
You find that word in 1 Chronicle 15:17.
Donc les anciens peuples qui habitaient Kinshasa l'appelaient Kushaj.
The people who used to live in Kinshasa, the first people used to live in Kinshasa, they used to call it Kushaj.
Toutes les communes de cette ville portent des noms bibliques.
All the name, you find all the name on this the Kinshasa city, you find all of them is we found their name in the Bible.
Tout ça, il y a des références à côté, donc vous pouvez le voir dans vos Bibles et comprendre les origines de chaque mot.
What you can see by giving you the word, you can find by looking on the map, you can see also those the reference in the Bible that you can double check to make sure that what we say that is true from the Bible.
Des noms comme Kabasele.
You see the word has a Kabasele.
Il y a un nom hébreu Kabasele.
Who is the Hebrew name Kabasele?
Donc vous trouvez les références dans 2 Samuel au chapitre 23 verset 21 et 20.
You see the reference that we provide you close to the name.
Nous passons en Ouganda.
We can check in Uganda.
Le nom de Ouganda vient de Or Guganda.
Uganda is a word from Hebrew whose mean Or Gundan.
C'est le premier nom que les Juifs ont porté, c'était les Baganda. C'était le premier campement d'Israël après la traversée de la mer Rouge.
That's the first place where Israel people, they call that name the first place where they live after they get out from the seed ocean, Red Sea.
Alors, vous voyez Rwanda qui est Rwanda.
Rwanda, who's Rwanda? Rwanda.
1 Chronique, chapitre 8, verset 36.
1 Chronicle 8:36.
Vous voyez la ville comme Kigali, qui est le mot Gilgal.
You see the city like Kigali, who's in the word Hebrew word Gilgal.
Vous voyez le mot Hutu, qui vient du nom Umtu.
The word Hutu from Umtu.
Nom des archers de David et des archers de Josué qui ont. Alors tous ces noms que vous avez vus, ce sont des noms qui ont que les Juifs ont amenés en Afrique.
So all these names that you have seen are names that Jews are brought to Africa.
Nous avons pris seulement quelques échantillons.
Taken just a few samples.
Mais si vous entrez en Afrique, vous allez trouver que chaque nom a un lien avec l'histoire d'Israël.
But if you go to Africa, you will find that every name of a place has a connection to the history of Israel.
Et les noms que les Africains disent que ce sont les noms de leurs ancêtres sont des noms d'Israël.
And the names that African people say are the names of their ancestors are actually Hebrew names.
Mais les chercheurs sont allés plus loin pour trouver si vraiment les peuples qui sont au-delà de l'Éthiopie, donc au sud du Sahara, qui ont une forme particulière, sont vraiment des Juifs.
But the researchers even went further to look into sub-Saharan Africa to see whether the people in sub-Saharan Africa are truly connected to Israel.
Alors, une recherche qui a été faite par la BBC, par de chercheurs britanniques, sur des crânes datant de l'époque de Jésus.
A research done by BBC which helps to confirm whether the children of Israel really came and settled in sub-Saharan Africa.
Et ils ont pris un crâne qui datait de l'époque de Jésus.
BBC researcher found a skull of somebody that used to live at the time of Jesus Christ.
Pour avoir des données archéologiques de la race de peuple qui est de la forme des Juifs de cette époque-là.
To find a good example of how the people that lived in Jesus' time looked.